So I guess the steps was realizing I can't do this on my own because it hasn't worked out for me. Evidence shows, history shows this has not worked out for me, thinking that I could just fake it till I make it. Realizing that I need to reestablish my core and what that means, what is important to me, because beauty is fleeting, right? And we have to go inward of what makes us us, what made me me.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to 2 Decades Deep podcast. This is a podcast where we explore the nuances, the ebbs and flows, the highs and lows. Wow, I'm rapping today. Of our 20-somethings. I am your host, Taylor Howard, and I'm so happy to have you all here. And whether you're tuning in on Apple Podcasts, whether you're tuning in on Spotify or YouTube, wherever you consume your podcasts, I'm glad that you're here. Today, I am so excited. I say I'm excited with every guest, but I really am genuinely that excited to be with all of you all. I'm really excited to have you here.
Happy to be here.
I'm happy that you're
I
here. I appreciate you driving up
Mm-hmm.
from your hometown.
Skipping hop.
And hopping.
There's nothing. Yeah.
I did you said.
Okay.
And I'm just really stoked about this conversation, and I appreciate you reaching out about the podcast, and I think this is going to be a very phenomenal episode.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Something that we resonate with is fashion. And so I'd love to know, what do you got on, girl?
Oh,
Off the shoulder look.
I believe this top is from Fashion Nova. I got this years ago. Pants are actually no boundaries from Walmart. I love them. I love them so much. I love my mom jeans. Just Coach earrings, just keeping it simple. I'm a Coach girly, so yeah.
I'm a Coach girly too.
Yeah.
It's so funny. You and I were talking about earlier, like this whole G phenomenon.
Mhm.
About me is I'm aware G.
She's wearing this Canadian tuxedo.
Really,
I'm into it. I'm into it.
so I was gonna tell you the funny story. Like, I remember one time me and my cousin, yeah, I'm outing you, girl. Me and my cousin, we were in an argument, and she was like, I was wearing jean, but I wasn't wearing the same color denim.
Okay.
So like one was light, one was dark, and she was like, jean on jean, really? Like, you gonna wear that?
It's a slippery slope. If the washes aren't matching, you're entering like tacky territory. It's real easy. You got to make sure they matching.
No, literally. But yeah, so I think those are one of the ways, like, I think fashion, whether how you do your makeup, how you do your hair, is like a pivotal way that contributes to our beauty and how we feel about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so I'd love to know for you, what does beauty mean to you, or how do you define beauty?
Well, I feel like my definition of beauty is kind of ever changing. What it meant 10 years ago isn't what it means for me now. Now I have adopted the mindset of just showing up as my authentic self, and that's just however I wake up, how I'm feeling. I go into the room as that. This is Bree today. You're gonna accept it. Usually it goes in my favor. But I think just being anchored, my therapist loves that word, being anchored in who you are and showing up as your authentic self always. I think that people can see that and feel that. So that's my definition of beauty these days.
I love how you talked about how it evolves, and I can definitely resonate with that, whether it's things that I'm going through or what. Unfortunately, I can be often influenced by
Yeah.
also is going
In this society, how can you not be influenced?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so I think that, just talking about the evolution of beauty, I think is really important. And we're going to hit on the authenticity piece and how that plays into how you show up in spaces today. But I want to get into your research because I think it's really unique. Okay, so I know that you received your master's back in 2023.
Yes.
And so I'd love to know, can you talk a little bit about your thesis and what you essentially worked on during your experience in your master's program?
Yeah. So I got my master's in sociology, graduated May of 2023. I'm really into the study of society, how people operate, think, how we came to be the species that we are. So when it was time to start pitching ideas for a thesis, I knew I wanted to do something along the lines of societal beauty standards. And my initial idea was to do the BBL culture. And while that is really interesting, and I know a couple people who've gone through that experience, I just felt like it's something that's been done before time and time again. And the research is still developing because we're smack dab in the middle of it still. When I reflected, I'm like, oh, girl, you got a real unique story yourself, and it's on the unconventional side of things. And I just went inward into how isolated I felt throughout my journey, feeling like I had no representation, kind of not knowing where to look or where to go, because I didn't see myself on Instagram or on TV shows, things like that. And then I also remembered just yearning to talk to another person that has the same experience as me. So I'm like, well, let me be that and do that. Let me do that for the next young girl who goes through this tragic thing, right? And there's a whole body of work that is there. So I decided to hone in on the unique experience of being a Black woman because that is a beauty standard within itself in this Eurocentric world that we live in, and then also focus on a specific disability, which is physical scarring, which can get overshadowed because it's not a physical hindrance, but it's still a form of abnormality, as they say. So I decided to interview Black women that are burn survivors nationwide, collect that data, and just focus on the intersection of race, gender, and a form of disability in the form of physical scarring. My thesis is called Earn Beauty, stories of how Black women manage their recovery and trauma response. Um, and it's published, so you can look that up. For short, you can just type in Bree McCall Burn Beauty and it should pop up in the ISU research database. But yeah, I decided to do my research on that, and it's been really rewarding, all that's unfolded from it. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing, and we're gonna talk a little about in the tail end of our conversation about, like, what have you been able to do with that, and also I know that you've done retreats,
Mhm.
and so we're gonna dive into all of that, but I do want to start to level of your comfortability.
Yeah.
He mentioned that you were in a tragic accident in 2023, so whatever level of comfortability that you had to just, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your incident.
Yeah. So this happened 2013, April 6th. So we are approaching 12 years. That's crazy. So I remember we were either coming off of spring break or going into spring break. I remember Easter had already passed, so maybe it was like the end of that break. And I had spent the night at a friend's house. And my mom picked me up the next morning. And for context, my mom is like my best friend. So we're driving home and I'm like, oh mom, let's spend the day together. Like, let's just go do something. She's like, okay, cool. So I went home. This is when the weather was just starting to break. So Black households, my mom did not turn on the air yet. So all the windows were open, screen doors were open and everything. And I was hungry. And this is when I started like making things on the stove myself. This is before air fryers. I'm aging myself. So I had to like manually put the oil in the pot and wait for it to heat up. So we lived in a townhouse, so my room was downstairs, like kind of like this layout. Imagine my room being right here. I could see the kitchen from my room. I had just showered, and I remember I had on these little Sophie shorts, a sports bra, and then like a cutout t-shirt with the like sides missing. So I was very exposed. And I just remember laying across my bed, keeping an eye on the pot, and I just remember it caught fire, and I'm like, okay. And just the adrenaline, everything happening so fast, I'm just thinking, put this fire out. So I made a very amateur mistake, and I put water to the fire, to the pot. And this is a lesson to the kids: to water and oil do not mix. It exploded in my face, and then with the air in the house circulating, that made the fire even more bigger. So I just remember seeing my body on fire, my arm in specific. I tried to make my way out the house. I kept tripping. I remember my mom's then boyfriend like jumping over the banister over the stairs to like smother me and put me out. Um, I made my way outside, did the whole stop, drop, and roll thing. And yeah, I was out pretty much after that. I remember my mom being inconsolable. My sister, who's 5 years younger than me, she was like telling my mom, "Don't look, mom, don't look." Because I guess by that time, my skin was hanging off. The whole left side of my face was like black. Um, and yeah, I just remember going out after that, and I woke up in an ambulance. And yeah, I'm from Peoria, Illinois. This is where this happened. And Peoria doesn't have a burn unit. So they had to transport me to the next burn unit, which was Springfield Memorial Medical Center. Luckily, I was stable enough to where I didn't have to be airlifted. And I just remember that drive. And I remember my mom like peeking over and she was like, "Oh, we're spending the day together." So that ties back in. But yeah, that was April 6th, 2013, and here we are 12 years later. Yeah.
And how old were you?
I was 15. I was a freshman in high school, so you could imagine the timing of that where I'm trying to come into myself and um yeah, and looks mean everything to me at that point, right? And just having your whole world just altered in a couple minutes, really. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Well, one, I appreciate you sharing that.
Of course.
Um, wow.
Yeah.
So you were 15 years old. How long was the recovery time?
I would say in totality, I was in the hospital for a month. Um, this was April, so I could not go back to school, so I had to get homeschooled. But physical therapy, all of that. I had to wear compression garments for a good while after. So I would say about a year total before I felt like myself again. And even then, I could only be in the sun so long or had to be super lathered with sunscreen, a hat on, just basically wearing what happened to me, you know? So yeah, but it was about a year. Yeah.
And you've mentioned a couple things that you had to do physically, and that's just like wearing extra sunscreen, doing physical therapy, kind of like reacclimating essentially to your life again.
Yeah.
But can you talk about, to your comfort level, what was that like emotionally or mentally during that process?
Um, it's weird because back then I felt this overwhelming need to like prove to my peers and my family that I wasn't affected. And the older I got, I realized how much of a disservice that was to me. Like I really didn't process it, and that's probably why it hit me so hard after the fact, right? We'll get into that. But in the moment, I just remember thinking like, "Can we cuss?"
Yeah.
Okay. I remember in the moment thinking like, "Damn!" Like now I have to redefine what beauty means, you know? And looking back in hindsight, I don't know if that was a good thing because I always struggled with self-esteem and confidence and stuff. So I'm like, okay, now I just have to keep pushing. Like that was my mindset. Just keep pushing. I was a dancer in school. So I just wanted to get back to normalcy, my level of normalcy. I didn't want to be handicapped in the house. My arm was like stuck for a while. Like I just wanted to again prove to other people because rumors were swirling like crazy of how I looked and rumors of I lost all my hair and like it was all types of stuff going around school. So I was anxious that summer, but also just like I have to prove that this didn't change anything, you know, and more so for others' perception than my own. And that came back to bite me once I got to college, for sure. But initially, that was my mindset. Yeah.
And I think a lot of women of color can resonate with I'll worry about myself later. I just need to make sure that I'm showing up well, or I want to be perceived as someone who's unfazed by the things that happened to me. And so I think that's something that's very important that you highlighted, because it does come back, and it comes back 10 times hard.
Girl with a vengeance.
With a vengeance, my goodness. And then all other stuff come up as well. And so yeah, I think that's a really important thing that you mentioned about like suppressing emotions and suppressing the things that happened to you. And so I don't want to get too deep into like what was said and all these things, but I do want to know, like, when you went back to school, like what were some of the things that you had to face? Not necessarily what like or it's up to you what people have said and how people were treating you, but more so how you were able to like pick yourself up and how your family was able to like pour into you in those moments.
Yeah, yeah. I will say I wholeheartedly believe that the timing of my accident was very vital in my recovery. And I say that because I feel like by high school, even if you have negative thoughts or you're thinking these mean things, you have enough common sense to not voice it. So I didn't deal with like any bullying or anything like that. Don't know what people said behind my back, but I was never made to feel or intentionally made to feel less than. But you can I pick up on everything. Like I'm not, I noticed how people and still, are people are gonna look at what they're not used to seeing every day. I understand that. I accepted that a long time ago. I get that. But it's still a little weird, people who can't make eye contact with me because they're going from my scars back to my face, back to my scars to my face. Um, or people like I just remember everything felt like slow motion the day I walked in on the first day of sophomore year. Like, it just seems like everybody stopped in their tracks, like, and just watched me, like, walk down the hallway, you know? Or my teachers even would try to coddle me in a sense. Mind you, physically, I'm able to walk like nothing. They appointed other students to like hold my books for me and stuff like that when that wasn't needed. So just I understand their attempt or their effort to accommodate me, not knowing the severity of the situation. Like this is all hearsay up until this point. So seeing me for the first time that first day of school sophomore year, I think everybody was like just like a temperature check. Like, how bad is it? What do we do? How can we help? How can we not overstep but not ignore it as well? So I think that's the main thing I remember is like everyone just being so cautious and not knowing really how to deal with me, my friends included. Not knowing like what questions to ask. Are you okay? How do you feel? It was weird. But I appreciate again that it wasn't a situation where I felt like I couldn't survive in that environment. I was in high school, already had a good support system, so I didn't have to go through anything bad that would, affect my mental health in that way. Anything bad was really internal, my own self-perception, things like that. Um,
And I do want to go into college because I know that you said that that's when things kind of got real.
mhm.
Doesn't all things go to a head in college? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you, so it's really refreshing to hear that you had like a really good support system in those moments, and you saying like if anything, it would be the things that I tell myself.
Yeah.
I relate to in the sense that I throughout childhood up until mid-20s, and it was a constant battle of like my self-esteem, my self-worth, how I looked at myself, how I viewed myself, being a brown skin girl, do I like that?
Yeah.
All these things. And so I had a lot of negative self-talk. I'm wondering for you, you said that the things that you dealt with were very internal. What were some of the emotions that were coming up for you? What were some of the things that you were telling yourself? Because you also talked about you suppressed it though.
Yeah.
And so I want to know like the psychological experience that you can recall and remembering during that time to the level of your comfortability.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just putting on this like bravado, like, oh, this doesn't affect me. It's not slowing me down or anything. And I think my environment helped me mask, in a sense that I've always been, like, into fashion, hair, makeup, so that's how I would conceal. So I'm like, my motto is, "She can beat me, but she can't beat my outfit," right? Like, I that has been and will always be my superpower, and I was always acknowledged for that, even post-accident of, "Oh, you put yourself together very nice, and, I still show up to the best of my ability," what have you, but I think I was kind of coddled in a way where Peoria is a smaller community. Everybody up until that point, I would say, like, the end of high school knew my story. So it wasn't like an introduction of sort. Fast forward, it's time for college, and I had the desire to go away, get away. I wanted a new scenery. I wanted to get the HBCU experience because I went to predominantly white institutions all throughout grade school. So I wanted that experience, and I went to Jackson State my freshman year of college. And overall, great experience, but even I think outside of being different physically as far as having physical scarring, I don't think people prepare you, especially coming from our background of, like, going to suburban schools or being a suburban girl or what have you, going to predominantly Black institutions.
So you talked about you finally started to kind of do some introspection and realize like what's different now.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think was either the breaking point or like the pivotal experience that started to make you really hone into like, wait, maybe I didn't deal with this like I thought I did?
Yeah, I think just my time at Jackson State, like, that whole year in itself was the pivot for me, and just really accepting and embracing you're different, you will always be different. Um, and you can't mask it anymore. You can't hide behind this front that you're putting on, because I would be in social settings where, and this applies across many different unconventional beauty standards, but if you're in a friend group and either you're the plus size one, or I hate the whole like dark skin thing, but that's a thing. Just knowing, like, I knew and felt that I would never be the first choice, and that in itself was humbling to say the least. Knowing that no matter how much effort I put into getting dressed, um, putting my best foot forward, that I would never be the first choice. Um, and this looks like, just it's so dumb now, but in the moment, it would be like if we're out and um I could physically see someone looking at me, wanting to approach me, and they'll make their way over to approach me. And then as they get closer, whatever I have visible, whether it be my arm, the scar on my lip, or whatever is visible, and just seeing the switch of like, oh, never mind. Um, and so it's like, oh, okay. Like, again, very humbling. Talk about humbling. Um, and so yeah, I transferred out of Jackson State after my freshman year, and then I moved back to Illinois. And then from there, it's just started the up and down of sometimes I'm feeling it, most times I'm not. Like, what does this mean? I never really cared to like hide myself prior, but I found myself like not wanting to go out, not wanting to wear certain things, or if I did meet someone new, like making sure I jumped the gun. Like, I'm a burn survivor, right? Like, if they did meet me in person, like, how like this is how I look in real life. Does that bother you? Like, just I don't want to say I was mean, but I could see how someone would get turned off from that. Like, hold on, dang, like, yeah, I knew. Like, pipe down, calm down, just feeling like I had to beat people to the punch. And that's not a good feeling at all. And so it wasn't until graduate school when I seriously sought therapy that I started to debunk all that and go through all those layers of where is this stemming from. And I didn't deal with it like at all up until really graduate school. Like all of undergrad was the trenches. So just the ups and downs of it. Um, Feeling like people really didn't wanna be my friend for real, like, sure, I was good for a couple pictures and everything like that, but feeling like my image wasn't, cohesive with the group image sometimes, and same thing with dating, like, I'm good enough to deal with behind closed doors, but out open in the public, like, that was always the iffy part, so yeah, it was a journey.
And I can think about, like, with masking, and you talked about, like, being the dark skinned girl, being this, being that, like, you masking and maybe almost like I'm saying you, but I mean, like, people, sometimes we can find ourselves, like, overcompensating.
Yeah.
And then when you mask in one area, it can bleed into other areas too, where you just have a wall up, and that's something that I 100% struggled with. I wanted to be the perfect girl. I wanted to be the desirable person, and noticing, like, people would choose other people. Maybe I'm a little more quirky and, like, there's all those things, and so I started to mask myself to, essentially morph into whatever society or whatever I thought was appropriate,
Yeah.
only to realize that I'm, like, literally self-destructing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that you and I can relate on, something that I feel like you and I can resonate with, but like you said, it does come to a head and eventually you have to decide
Mhm.
whether or not you're going to deal with it or whether you're gonna keep masking.
Yeah.
And so you said that you sought therapy. I'm a firm believer in therapy. I've been in therapy for the
Yes, yes.
and so can you just talk about, like, how that like, the tangible steps, whether it's therapy, whether it's other things, the tangible steps that you took towards finding healing and, like, accepting all sides of you?
Yeah, therapy, oh my god, that was a reckoning because it brought to the surface all these things that I didn't know were there, and I guess that's what the point of therapy is, right? And I'm glad that you said, trying to be all the things society wants you to be, and I think, what really was a breaking point for me, because growing up, if I can set the picture for you,
Got
right?
the picture, girl.
I lived in the south end of town of Peoria. I'm from the south end of Peoria, predominantly Black neighborhood, but I went to school in the suburbs. So my whole childhood, it was this really identity crisis because when I'm back home with my family, my friends, when I get off the bus, why you talk like that? You so white and da da da, like whatever that means. And then going to school and trying to adhere to that culture. So I feel like I never really had a good sense of identity. And I know as a child, like that is rare, but at least this is where I come from. I'm proud to be who I am. It's okay that I like other things outside of Black culture. That doesn't make me any less Black. Like I feel like I didn't have that. So when it came time to really deal with the inward things, not only am I dealing with my physical appearance, I'm reckoning with all the internal stuff that I didn't know I dealt with or struggled with. Because again, like I'm just brushing it off. I'm brushing it off. Like it doesn't bother me, whatever, whatever. And then now when my therapist is asking me questions like, well, what is your anchor? What is home for you? What is your joy? What are you confident about yourself in? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Cause I just up until this point was being who I thought everybody wanted me to be. Because I felt like if I showed my mom or my dad that, hey, this affects me, that would break them. They wouldn't know how to deal with that. Right. So I guess the steps was realizing I can't do this on my own because it hasn't worked out for me. Evidence shows, history shows this has not worked out for me, thinking that I could just fake it till I make it. Realizing that I need to reestablish my core and what that means. What is important to me? Because beauty is fleeting, right? And we have to go inward of what makes us us, what made me me. So she was asking those type of questions, and not being able to answer for a long time. Like, I remember those first initial sessions, I was just quiet, like, talking about my world rocked. Like, what what is my anchor? What is my core value system? Like, I don't know that I have any of that. And then once I started working on that, it became easier to just authentically show up as myself and not feeling like I have to be this person because I'm around this group or what have you, or when I'm with my family. So I think that was the most important part of my therapy journey, starting. And they always say, acceptance is the first step, and just accepting that I needed to work from the inside out. Um, yeah.
I think what you said is so powerful, especially talking about like acceptance and figuring out who you are.
Mhm.
And you're right. Like we're growing up, I feel like, especially like 10, 11, 12 to about now. It's constantly like, who am I? What do I like? Who like what do I want to be? And then you're evolving in the process. And there's like environment contributors and people that like shape who you are. But I totally get the feeling of not knowing who you are. I remember when I moved to DC and my therapist was asking me things about myself and I genuinely couldn't tell her anything. It was only what other people had told me about myself, but who me to the core, I couldn't figure it out. And it took a lot of, like, solitude. I don't really believe in isolation, but I think solitude is important, but I also think, like you said, doing things in community and opening up and being more vulnerable is really helpful. And so I'd love to know a little bit about what does anchor you now, and who is Bree?
Yeah, yeah. What anchors me now? I think now I'm I can confidently, like, I always like downplay my accolades and all I've accomplished up until this point, playing like that fake humble role. Like, I can confidently say, like, I'm proud of myself. I'm resilient. I know that for damn sure. Like, I have overcame so much. I know that I am a great daughter. I know that I'm a great big sister. I know that I'm a great girlfriend. I know that I am lively. I know that I can make something out of nothing, and those are all the things that I'm learning to just really revere and appreciate myself, and not downplay anything because no one knows what it took to get to this point. So I think my anchor, my joy, because I understand happiness is fleeting. You won't be happy every day, but what anchors you is your joy. So just knowing that I don't have it every day. I don't have it every day. I don't plan to. I never will. But through and through, I'm a good person. And I show up as my best self. If it's 80%, that's what you're getting a day, So, yeah, and just treating others kindly. That I firmly, firmly believe in that. No matter what I'm going through, I will never take it out on the next person. I love being good and doing good in the world. So, yeah.
I literally, when you were talking, I was like, this woman is so resilient and so inspiring. And I think we can often kind of, well, I'll speak for myself. So I'm saying we. Sometimes I can use the things that have happened to me, the trauma that has unfortunately been brought over me. I can use that as a crutch.
Yeah, I
I can
can.
just accept that and then not try to overcome the things that I'm going through. And so it's really refreshing to hear that you did your work,
Yeah.
and not every day is super amazing and you're just like the most confident person ever every single day. But this, and even in the ups and downs, I think also really help and shape who you are. So I just think that you're so inspiring. And you talked about doing good in the world, and that's like your number one thing.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how you used your story and your experience to start your retreat?
Yeah, so it's not my retreat. This is something that another bird survivor, her name is Andrea Grant. She is she has a whole brand surrounding being a burn survivor. She's amazing. So we recently did the first Beyond Scars burn retreat. That's the name of her brand, Beyond Scars. She's been on Dr. Phil. She's been interviewed nationwide. She has a book. Like she is. I remember in my recovery process, like running to Instagram trying to find other Black girls that are burn survivors, and she was the first one. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna live my life like her. Like she is everything. But once I went through and did my thesis and everything like that, her and I were communicating, and I'm like, hey, because this was an idea like years ago, but not enough people were gathered for her to do it. And so she was like, you know what, we're going to do it this year. So really, we're kind of just starting this thing now. We're hoping to make it an annual thing. But it was awesome to be invited and included. And I think she said moving forward, I'm going to take on a more administrative role. So I'll be helping put together the retreat and everything like that. So it's cool. But since then, I've been public speaking. I did a middle school public speaking, and that was cool. The kids were so great, and above above all things, they saw me besides my scars, and that was like any time I go into a new setting, like that's always at the forefront of my mind. Like, are they gonna just look at my scars the whole time? But it was cool to just reaffirm like most of the times it's in my head, you know? Like, most of the time, that's not what people are thinking, and people have to tell me that, but, yeah, that experience was that, and then the retreat was so cool because that was the first time I've been around other Black women that are burn survivors, like, just looking and just seeing the spectrum, if you will, of injury, and we're telling stories and everything like that, so just having that community, that was a life-changing experience. It still, like, just gives me chills whenever I talk about it, just being around other women who just look like me. Like, if we didn't say anything that whole weekend, I would have been okay with that. Like, just being around women who look like me was, like, mind-blowing. But yeah, Beyond Scars Retreat, it's amazing. We're coming back this year, so hopefully bigger, more expanded. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I love what you said, like, if we didn't say nothing, just to know that I am in the presence of women who have experienced something similar to me, people that look like me is a game changer. And can you talk about why you think that representation is so important? Because I know that you said you were looking through Instagram trying to find people that you aligned with. So why is this representation so important for you?
I think in just simple terms, it just reassures you that you're not alone. I think when people go through something traumatic, it can feel so isolating, like your world is crumbling. I'm the only one going through this life-altering moment, whether that be through anything. And I think what gets me through, whether that be this heartbreak, losing a friend. It's like, this is not an isolated experience. You're not the only one that's gone through this, but it can be really hard to adapt that and believe it and accept it if you don't see it, right? So throughout the years, yeah, I'm telling myself, like, oh, I'm not the only one, but where? Where are the rest of you guys, So I think just being around them, and we can compliment each other on something other than, like, I guess the conversation doesn't have to be what happened to us. We don't have to lead with that. We're all meeting each other for the first time. We don't have to lead with like, no shit, like I know it happened to you, right? So we can just from there, that being the foundation, build that rapport and that sisterhood and connect in other ways that surpass our physical scarring. Yeah. So that was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we're wrapping up, but I'd love to know. We do this segment
Okay.
with all of our guests. It's called "What I Wish I Would Have Known." And so I'd love to know from your perspective, what is something that you wish you would have known about beauty before entering in college?
I mean, it's cliche, but I would say beauty stems from within, you know? if you don't feel it, no one else will. If you don't, I think people can instantly tell when you're not sure of yourself. I think it shows up more than people like to believe. So I would tell myself that A, it gets better, and B, you have to believe it yourself. You have to embrace it yourself. You have to believe it yourself. And don't let other people's perception of you change that. Anchor yourself. Shout out to Danielle.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
steal that. I'm gonna steal that anchoring.
Yes.
And going back to your first point, I asked you, what does beauty mean to you? And you talked about being your authentic self. And so we talked a little bit about that because I was like, who are you? But beauty, as your current definition, is defined by accepting yourself. So what does that look like currently? What does beauty look like currently for you?
For me, it's just, and I've been walking in this for a couple years now. For me, it's whether I'm all dressed up or not, knowing, okay, this is my best. I look good. And wearing whatever I want, doing whatever I want. For the longest, I wouldn't post pictures, in a bikini or whatever. But now it's just like, I feel like it's so freeing when I showcase myself and just put myself out there because, okay, everybody knows I'm a burn survivor. Now what? Like now it has to be something else, and I appreciate it more when people compliment me or say you're so beautiful because it's like you see past what for so long I hid. And I think that is a reward in itself. Like, okay, what you are doing is being noticed. Like, people are noticing that you're stepping outside of your shell. People are noticing that you did succumb to what happened to you. You're still just living your life. And I'm coming into that wholeheartedly. And like I said, it's everlasting. It's ups and downs with it, but I've never felt more secure than I do now. So, yeah. Yeah.
It honestly, I am such a champion of women, and it is so amazing to see that you are like, I love who I am and I feel secure in who I am. That is literally, I said this a couple times on episodes, that is like my biggest desire, that women can truly
Yeah.
love and accept themselves for who they are. It's like, hear that from a Black woman, from someone who has overcame so much, but even outside of that, just someone who's just evolving.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to hear.
Thank
So
you.
I'm so proud of you.
I received that. Thank you so
I
much.
teach you the first time and I can see how much joy you exude.
Are you?
I am such a big person of happiness is fleeting, but joy is continuous. And I literally see the joy on you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, see, that will make me cry.
And if you cry, I will cry.
Oh, yeah. It's been a journey. It's been a journey. And people just really underestimate, like, once you just live life, one, accept who you are, like, it just becomes so much easier to just live life on your terms. Like, I don't care what no one has to say. I'm over it. I'm over just covering up. I'm over masking. Like, it's great. It's so liberating. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. And this was healing for me. I think it's a good reminder for me that I'm enough. Who I am to the core, outside of accolades, outside of beauty, outside of all these things that I try so hard to attain, like who I am to the core is enough. And so this was a really good reminder of that.
Yeah, only one Taylor.
Only one Taylor Marie Howard. Okay. And as always, we are uncovering who we are one chapter at a time, and we're unfolding at our own pace, and we're exactly where we need to be. Take care, everyone.